much, my lord. My lords, your excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, let me invite here Ayuli Jemide, Vice Chairman, NBA SBL, to give us the SBL scorecard.
After the NBA president has spoken and my chair of the SBL has spoken, both Leonard Silks, I have no choice but to stand on the protocol that they have laid. The scorecard I will do very quickly because I have a dual role here. After that, I will introduce the Mr. Speaker to give his keynote address. I thought I should do this scorecard quickly by being historical. I think it's the best way to go. And the SBL actually started with George Itomi as the chair. And if I were to talk about George in one word, I will call him a galvanizer. George was the one who started this, pioneered it with his sweat and blood. He's someone who never said no and never said anything was impossible. And in 2006, he did the inaugural annual conference, had 450 people in the room, which was no mean feat as at 2006. So we must give accolades to him, and that was the And after that came Umfom Usoro. If I had to describe her in one word, I would call her smart. And she was SBL's first and only lady chair to date. But we were at a point where the NBA at that time thought we didn't do proper elections. So we had no activities for 2 years. But Umfom is credited for her maturity and strength of character in this period. And the high point was the big news that the NBA had now revived the section on business law. Interestingly, that news paper called us session instead of section. And I think they knew that at that point we had been demoted to a session rather than a section. So maybe there was no pun intended. But that was where we were at that point in time until Are you doing this for me? I'm doing it myself. Until Mr. Ayuli came in as the chair. If I will describe Mr. Ayuli in one word, I will call him astute. And Mr. Ayuli put a lot of structures in place, improved the governance, and he networked the SBL into local and international recognition. Gio never does anything small. He thinks big and everything is large. So the typical things you would see in the newspaper under his tenure were this. Things like this. The London mayor signs an MOU on business law. And then came my brother, Asue Godalo. If I had to describe Asue in one word, I would say deliberate. Anything he says, anything he does, Asue knows where he's heading to. He pioneered a lot of, working with government agencies and engaging them Under his tenure, we set up the CSC SBL roundtable where we constantly had meetings with them on things going on in CSC. Under his tenure, SBL became a voice in the marketplace. We started to be a watchdog for governance. And typical things you would see in the newspaper under his tenure, it's like this, where the SBL, was saying that Maito should not have been tampered with. We give kudos to Aswe Godalo, who is not here today. And then came Olumide Akpata. One word, I will call him a networker. And he improved the cooperation between the MBA and the SBL. And we have a private joke because I always called him, I said, "You're an amphibian." One day, you are at the NEC meeting, the next day, you are at the SBL conference. Olumide made the association more national, setting up zonal coordinators. He's the most traveled SBL president. Every day you call him, he's in New York, he's in Port Harcourt, he's somewhere. He really worked the crowd. And he grafted in more young lawyers. And that's typical kind of news you would have seen about Olumide at Unilag inaugurating the SBL club. And then came the current chairman, Sheni Adio. One word for Sheni, I would say he's tactful. He gets things done, never rocks the boat, never quarrels with anybody. And since he came, he's been around for 1 year. He's facilitated a lot of international collaborations. This conference, for the first time, had a General Council forum yesterday, a whole day. And he still has a year to go, so we expect more from him. Yeah, I know you're changing it for me. So, this is typically what you would see in the newspapers under Sheni's tenure. Just quickly, growth indices. When we started, we were 200 members. Now we're about 3,500, 1,500 active. Conference attendance, inaugural conference was 450. Now we get, give or take, 1,300 people. Events, in those days, you could do 10 a year. In the last 2 years, the SBL has done 52 events. When we started, we had 7 committees. Now we have 18 practice area committees. And if I just round up, so SBL has made progress in thought leadership, legislative assistance, national international collaborations, mentoring, a host of other things. But the most important thing, if I would say, concerning SBL is that SBL has a good internal democracy. We change leadership with ease and devoid of rancor. Thank you very much. On that note, I would wear a different hat and introduce the Honorable Speaker. And I would like to say a few key things about him. He's a true Lagosian. Went to mainland preparatory school for primary, went to the famous Igbobi College for secondary school, studied at the University of Lagos. He's an accomplished lawyer, and he was called to the bar, to the Nigerian bar in 1984. And also called to the Georgia bar in the US in 2001, where he had a brief stint practicing in the US before coming back to Nigeria to join politics. Mr. Speaker joined Bentley, Edu, and Co., which, if you follow the history of law firms. Bentley Edu and Co. at that time in the early 80s, late 70s, was a top-tier firm and known for its intellectual property practice. They later merged with another top-tier firm, Ivan and Bonner. And interestingly, after he left there, he ran his own practice, Femi Gbaja & Co., at 182, 184 Broad Street, Lagos. I've done some research on Mr. Speaker, and I find out that he's someone who is not bashful about positive controversy. There's negative controversy, there's positive controversy. And so in the past, he filed suits against the federal government who he accused of operating illegal excess crude account and spending taxpayers' money without appropriation. And this is part of what led to the Treasury single account. In 2001, he was nominated for the high-ranking National Award, Officer of the Federal Republic. He turned it down on the grounds that he didn't deserve it and that the award system in Nigeria wasn't really as merit-based as it should be. He didn't stop there. He then sponsored an amendment to the National Honors Act, 1964, to make the selection criteria more stringent. Mr. Speaker is the third Nigerian to reject a national award, the other two being Chinua Achebe and Professor Grace Alele Williams. He is the youngest of the three. He's a committed legislator, been at the House of Reps since 2003 and emerged Speaker this year. What this tells me is that this is one Rome that was not built in a day. He was the chairman of a clique of legislators called the 2007 Movement, who fought against the third-term agenda of the then President Olusegun Obasanjo, at great risk to his political career. By his second tenure, he had the highest number of bills sponsored, including Employee Rights Bill, Local Content Bill, and a host of others. He was the first and only legislator to invoke the doctrine of necessity, which led to the swearing-in of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan as acting president when President Yar'Adua was ill. Just a bit about his personal attributes before I call him to the podium. And you wonder, I don't know him personally. How do I know about his personal attributes? In this day of the internet, you follow people and you can know who they are from the things they do and say. So I can say that he's someone who prefers solutions. He rejected the award. He went ahead to try and get a bill to change the law. I followed all his bills, and I find out that every bill was presented and sponsored to cure a mischief. And I ask you to go and check that out. He's fiercely loyal. He's one of the only politicians who have publicly criticized the idea of legislators cross-carpeting. And the last thing I would say before I step down, and Mr. Speaker, I dug you up to your Form 1 in Igbobi College. And he belonged to a group of four, I would say men, but at that time they were boys. Form 1, they must have been 10, 11. And they called themselves ROGA, R-O-G-A. And that was an acronym for the surnames of the four of them. One surname was Ransom Kuti, the R. The other one was Oyewole, the O. And then there was G, which is Mr. Speaker. And then there was A, Adefarasin. And these boys made a pact of solidarity to protect their common interests. So as far back as Form 1, Mr. Speaker understood the power of strong alliances. And today, he's still operating in that. Without much ado, please welcome Mr. Speaker. May we all stand.